Well, hello there, chums. It is I, Captain Steve NXO, and I'm here, up in my news centre, on my freighter, to bring you a little bit of news. When I say a little bit of news, this is more speculation than anything. In fact, it's purely speculation. There's a few videos going around at the moment. Things that people would like to see come in a summer update. Not that one's been announced, but Hello Games have said that they're going to continue to bring us stuff through 2020, so it can only be assumed, can't it? Right, okay, well, I've already done a video on my wish list for things that I would like to see in the year 2020, and I did that at the start of the year. I'm going to put a link to that up in that top right hand corner up there, chums. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to check it out, because there's some lovely stuff, lovely jubbly stuff in there. But for now, I'm just going to fire up this to show you Grant Duncan back in 2015. Yes, this is going way back in time, chums, way back. And yeah, he's talking about some wonderful, lovely, glorious stuff like variety and super biomes and all sorts of gnarly shizzle that we just don't have at the moment, chums. So yeah, if I fire that up so you can see what he's saying, because I have a bit of a theory, and I'll be right back with you with that theory after you watch some of this mind-blowing frickin' footage from all the way back then in yonder. Right, so here we go. Exo, if you wouldn't mind, my friend, could you please execute a mondo the footage? Load them up, sir!
So one of the things at the very beginning we thought about doing was that we were going to divide up the kind of foliage system into biomes, which is the way games like Minecraft and loads of different games do it. It's the equivalent of like playing Sonic, where you have like a fire level, you have an ice level, you have a jungle level. But so you'd fly down to a planet, and this one would be like a sort of alpine, sort of coniferous forest kind of planet. And so we were gathering lots of reference from the real world. Again, the logic being that if we could mimic the real world and get the rules to be in that sort of a believable universe, then at the very end, or towards the end, we could do really fun things, break those rules, and get all the alien variation from that. So we had like woodland, which would be deciduous trees and that kind of thing, which is more like Britain, which is what I'm used to, although it's normally a lot grayer than that. And there's your jungle level, this weird little bird guy. And this would be like a Sahara desert type planet, or more like your American Nevada deserts with your cacti and your harsh, spiky terrain. Swamp planets, Dagobah, they're always good. But what we found by creating those sort of biomes, those separate biomes, that human beings are really, really good at spotting patterns. So you'd fly down to a planet and it would be a swamp planet, and you'd go, oh, it's a swamp planet. And instantly that breaks this illusion, and you just realize what's going on behind the scenes. And the thing with video game artwork is so much of what we do is an illusion. Like, especially linear games where you can look out a window and you can see a mountain in the distance, but we all know that, you can't get to that mountain. And as artists work in the industry, everything we do is where it's all pretend, and we don't want anybody to see behind the scenes. And having those separate biomes, it absolutely revealed that, and our game is it's incredibly important that you don't get that sense of illusion. So what we ended up doing was creating what I call a super biome, which is a biome which covers all those biomes in one fell swoop. And it's, what's a good way of explaining it? If you imagine if you've ever used like a terrain generation tool where you'll have lots of different sliders that control different things like spikiness of mountains, trees, and we have that, but we have hundreds of different sliders, and we have min and max values for all those different sliders, but I don't have to go into every planet and manually move those sliders. What happens is when a planet is terraformed, those sliders are moved to different positions. Now, originally those positions were random, but what we found really interesting is if you start to link those sliders to things within the universe, like distance from a sun, whether the planet has a moon or not, then the results start to become believable, and you start to spot patterns, but it's patterns that you accept because you start to realize that, oh, this planet's really close to the sun, so the foliage is either going to be non-existent or it's just not going to be very green. And that's where the believability comes into it. what we wanted to do was create a few key concepts that would capture the vibe of this lost world, this No Man's Sky. And like, if anyone's seen the video we released years ago now, the E3 video where you walk down to the watering hole and the antelope run away, this was the piece of key art that kind of influenced that. These are real quick sketches, but all trying to kind of get across the vibe that we wanted to have each time you fly down to a new planet. And what this did, it gave us targets. It meant we could tweak things like slider values to try to make these kind of events more likely. And you'll see they all, well, a lot of them have this kind of, these landmarks. And we always wanted to have that sense that you fly down, there's always something on the horizon that draws you to it, rather than just being a dull terrain. There's always something you see that you want to go to. It adds a type of branch. It then adds a type of leaf. It then selects a bark type and a leaf type, and it is then decorated to match the environment, and it is then skewed to be different. And then we can see it for a different version where we take the same trunk, a different set of branches is selected, different leaves, different texture, and different shape. And essentially, every single prop in the game is created like this. And what you're seeing here is, in the same way I talk about the train having all these different sliders, we have the same for trees. So all that's happened here is it's gone, I'm going to add some branches. How many branches will I add? Select it based on a slider. What kind of leaf am I going to have? Select that based on a slider. So these are just two examples, and that's just one type of trunk. We have hundreds of kinds of trunks and thousands of different leaves and hundreds of different bark types. And the way it feels is that we're actually, if you've ever played like World of Warcraft, where you load up the game and you spend the first 10 hours fiddling around with the character creation, just scaling bones, moving decals. We have that, but for every single prop in the game. So it's all based on this set of parameters that we custom make for each thing. Then what would happen is whoever I was working with, normally Sean, like I've known Sean for I've worked with him for 7 years now, and we have a very healthy relationship. So we don't mess around. I just say, Sean, this looks shit, let's change this. And what he's really good at is looking at what I've done, and then he makes me a better artist. He says, why have you done this in the paint over? Why have you done that? And some artists are really good at knowing what they're doing, whereas I've just always been a little bit more gut-driven. I just do things because I think they look nice. But being a robot man like Sean is, he thinks, why are you doing this? And I think, I don't know, because it looks nice. And what he was really good at doing was saying, well, oh, so I noticed you've put like bushes around the base of that tree, or you've put little rocks and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, of course, that's what you do when you're doing environments and games. And so all he does is, well, why don't we just tweak the environment system so that every time you place a tree, then it does that. And so that's like a really simple example of just like one of the little rules we have. It's all these tiny little rules and systems that basically make it more likely for the procedural result to be like something I would have painted. Whether that's a good thing or not is for you to decide. We also have rules when it comes to things like shapes, and we talk about believability. Like, say, like a sort of swamp environment that's been, when the planet's been terraformed, it'll have generated this climate and ecosystem. And again, based on all these nice little universe rules, like how far away from the sun, or just the minerals in the soil, and that's all just like nice little controllable factors. But what happens is we know that we can tag certain types of leaf and tree and branch as being matching to a climate. So essentially what that means is on a swamp planet, you will get swamp leaves and swamp branches. That sounds like it's limiting, but it works over a huge number of things. And it means that can also get filtered through to creatures. So in a sort of damp environment, you're going to get these more cold-blooded, sort of waxy, damp-looking creatures. And also some of the color from the environment will leak through to the creatures, so there'll be natural camouflage. And in the same way, we can have the opposite of that, where we can add in props that are complementary, so they'll stand out. And that's that's when the real fun begins. And what I love talking to Sean about is how objects get placed on a terrain. And I know for a fact this is something that anyone who's ever worked with procedural generation with a terrain will know exactly what I'm talking about. That when you place objects using noise, humans just know there's something not quite right. And so what we have is like a clumping system. And it means that things get placed in a more pleasing way, which means that like they understand shape, and they will add like a large prop, and they will place medium props and small props, and it will kind of gradiate down. And every environment artist does these kind of things, but setting the rules, it meant we were guaranteed for that kind of thing to happen.
Okay, chums, now this is what the engine used to be able to do. This is going back like 5 years ago. Now, I honestly think that something has happened to their code as to why they couldn't actually produce what we see here now. I don't know whether that's to do with something legal, or whether it's just down to do with the actual, I don't know, the specs of our current gear, or whether it can't actually cope with this sort of level of rendering and detail and variation. But yet, what we have in these videos, to me, still looks more wondrous and still looks more alive and correct to the actual terrain and how everything is placed than what we see now. What we see now is very random and sort of noise placed, where this looks like it's organic, it looks like it's living. These are believable areas, and it's like that patches of grass there. I mean, yes, there were stegosaurs all walking about as well, but everything here just looks more believable. It looks like it makes sense. What we have now just seems like a random mishmash of noise placement rather than procedural placement. Do you see those little frogs jumping along the beach? Never seen those sort of faunas before, and they're supposed to be in swamp or places where you get water, which totally makes sense to have amphibians. I don't think we have procedural placement, I think we have noise placement, because you just don't see epic sort of scenes like this at all in any of the biomes or anything that we've got right now. In fact, we shouldn't even have biomes, according to Grant Duncan. In fact, that's what they wanted to get away from, if I'm hearing him correctly. I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong. I mean, put it in the comments if you feel I'm wrong. I mean, look at this biome. That's a swamp biome, and it just makes sense. A lot of this stuff, you can see it's moving, it's living, it's breathing, it's there somewhere. And I honestly think it could be on their dev servers. And I think that they have different iterations that they're going to be bringing out from their dev into pre-prod and then into live. And I'll be talking about that in a bit. But some of this stuff in here is just wondrous. I'm loving the way the creatures even move in this. It looks far more realistic, far more believable, and it's just not what we have currently. What we have currently is very far removed from this, to the point that I almost feel like they lost their code at some stage, and what we have is some sort of beta version that they're slowly working towards and bringing back into reality. I mean, this underwater scene, I think our underwater scenes now on the Abyss look better, but virtually every underwater scene now looks fairly similar from planet to planet, and that experience is no longer sort of exploration driven. We've got a lot more to do, but we haven't got a lot more to see. It's like we've got how many quintillion planets? And then we've got 30 biomes. Of course we're going to see patterns. It's freaking obvious we're going to see patterns. And yeah, I really hope summer 2020 gets rid of that. Right, now chums, my feeling on that is they've probably got some sort of server set up, a little bit like doing software development, and I've done a fair bit of that, and tool set alignment, and all the sorts of implementations of gnarly stuff. Now, when you do that gnarly stuff, you usually have a few different environments. So, in my current places, or places that I've worked in different sort of areas and time, there's been a test environment, there's also been a development environment, there's been a pre-prod environment, and then a production environment. So 4. But a lot of places, they just have 3. They have like a test environment or dev environment, which either name, and then a QA, and then also a production. So yeah, there seems to be different rules out there for different companies and different things. But yeah, we used 4, where I used to be some time ago when I used to be in the world of software development. Anyway, so I'm just going to fire up an image to give you some sort of representation. So executamondo. Okay, chum, so here's the actual picture of servers and dev, QA and prod, or test, dev, pre-prod and production. Now pre-prod is a bit like a PC experimental, and production is what we've got on pretty much every other sort of instance, but dev is where I think the magic would happen, and test is probably where all the things that didn't work out live. So yeah, that's kind of my idea on that. I'd add the GDC video in the top right hand corner now, chums, if you want to see that. Okay, chums, so yeah, I am hoping that a lot of the stuff that we saw in the GDC video and all that lovely stuff that was mentioned and how they thought the game would be is being worked on the whole time. In like a dev or a test state or a QA state somewhere out there, and occasionally they put bits over from that they've managed to finish off and polish and put it into the pre-prod. Pre-prod being like the experimental over on PC. Once it's confirmed as working over there, then they shift it over into production. Heck yes. So yep, that's kind of what I think is going on. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but yeah, I honestly do think that we've got all this stuff coming to us at some stage this year or after next gen, because some of this stuff is going to require some crazy maths, crazy freaking maths that currently we just don't really actually have. So there we are. It's not there right now, but it might be in next gen. You never know. So yeah, hopefully we're going to get all that stuff in next gen or before. They keep working on the code. They keep changing different APIs and graphical interfaces and things like that to get us a little bit more out of this current iteration and what our current consoles or PCs can deliver. So yeah, that's my hopes and dreams for a summer update. A massive variety, super biome, implementation, perhaps even crossplay and a galactic reset. I'd say this is going to be a big update and probably the biggest and probably maybe the last. And then after that it would just be polish and updates and little additions. We got the mech, didn't we? But there could be things like that in the future pipelines. But yeah, I am hoping for one more massive, great, massive update that brings us pretty much the vision that they had all the way back then. That vision. Hopefully it's not lost. Hopefully that dream is still somewhere in someone's head over at Hello Games. Is it there? I don't know. Only time will tell. Ha ha! Okay, so anyway, guys, thanking you out there for watching. Each and every single one of you. If you have anything to say, please add it in the comments. I love reading comments. Yeah, and I'll see you guys next time for more of the same. Goodbye for now. Goodbye. And yes, if you would like to support my channel, there's multiple ways to do so. One of those ways is Patreon, and there's multiple tiers, including ship models. These lucky people are getting ship models. Thanking you for your support. And here are all my other Patreon backers, and thanking you, chums. YouTube membership is another way to support my channel, and you get emojis all the way up to a Christmas box. Here are the people getting Christmas boxes at that higher tier. Thanking you. Well, if you want some merch, I have merch. Over on Teespring, you can get yourself a lovely mug or a funky pair of socks. Hop on over, take a look-see. Or hit a like, or subscribe, or hit that notification bell. Or just don't skip my adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue, and thank you for watching. Heck yes.